Welcome to the Armani Talks YouTube channel. I'm your host, Armani Talks. In this channel, I'm covering communication skills in order to help you level up your way with words. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you a few must-read books on leadership skills. But before I do, I want to share something with you that I always found strange. If you go to a lot of investors and you ask them for some of the best investing books, many of them will recommend books outside of investing. If you go to filmmakers and ask them for filmmaking books, many of them will recommend books outside of filmmaking. But I always thought that this couldn't be the case for leadership. I thought if you wanted to become a better leader, you had to read leadership books. But I was proven wrong. A couple of months back, I released a video called The Dark Sides of Leadership. And in that video, I talked about my leadership experience throughout my life. I was responsible for finding a club in my undergrad which dealt with creating a community for Bengali students. I was the vice president of my fraternity. I served as the vice president of my Toastmasters club, along with some leadership positions at work. And each time I entered the position filled with hope. I thought that the people that I was going to be leading were going to be filled with ambition. They were going to meet deadlines, if not work before the deadlines. I thought that they were going to be hard workers overall. But in the video, I shared that I was often disappointed. A lot of these people that I led, even though they were amazing talkers, were not amazing doers. They weren't ambitious. They weren't making deadlines. Heck, if I would remind them that they missed a deadline, they'd get mad at me. What gives? Over time, I started to learn a dark truth. You shouldn't expect that these people are going to be above and beyond. You should actually expect that these people are going to be lazy, unambitious, and a lot of troubling moments are going to randomly present itself when you need them the most. When I started to expect that, I started to unlock different modes of thinking, which allowed me to see 2 steps ahead. Steps that I wouldn't be able to see if I viewed them to be winners. And once I started to view them as losers who I had to work with, these thoughts, which saw 2 steps ahead, allowed me to embrace what they were going to do and alter my strategy in the present day moment so they would meet expectations. But this is a politically incorrect truth. To frame these people as lazy and unambitious, this isn't something that a leadership book is going to write. Some may, but a lot of them are going to talk about the politically correct stuff. So the books that I'm going to be recommending in today's video are not even leadership books. They are beyond that. Yet you will learn about how to deal with people in a profound way through these books. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to first recommend the book, and then I'm going to share a key idea that I learned that will benefit you. If you're ready and excited, go on and drop that like for me right on below. The first book is 11 Rings by Phil Jackson. If you've never heard of Phil Jackson, he was an NBA coach who won rings with guys like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal. A lot of egos. How is it that he was able to manage these different people? He incorporated mindfulness into his practice. And one of the key ideas that I learned from Phil Jackson was that one of the toughest times to be a leader is right after you won. This doesn't seem logical. You would think that when someone just won a championship ring, that is the easiest time to be a leader. You guys just won. Let's do it again. In a logical world, sure. But in the world of people, that's rarely how it turns out. What Phil Jackson noticed was that when people would win a championship, that's when that team mindset that allowed them to win slowly starts to become fragmented. Now, the different players are like, it was me that won. I was the reason that it all happened. They start to get more publicity. They start to become more egotistical. This is why Phil Jackson made sure that he incorporated some form of mindfulness or meditation into the practices so players could remain in the present day moment. But one of the key ideas to make note of is that right after you win does not mean that it's going to get easier. The second book is My Life and Work by Henry Ford. He was an entrepreneur, a businessman, multi-billionaire from a couple of 100 years ago, and he's responsible for the automobiles Ford. He's a street smarts kind of guy. He doesn't like all this fancy politics that you have to play, especially when you're running a big company. And one of the key ideas that I learned from Henry Ford was that he was not a big fan of job titles. Associate 1, Associate 2, Vice President, Senior Vice President, all these different labels. The reason why he didn't like it was because for Henry Ford, the number one priority was the work. And he realized that when you introduce too many labels, fragments start to form. And when fragments start to form, these different employees and players within the company start to work for the job titles rather than focus on the work. So what he would often do was call people partners. He saw that there were two main groups within his company: the people who make decisions on what to do with the resources, and those who bring those decisions to life, also known as the labor. Rather than pinning one group against the other, he called them partners. So when he called them partners, it was one of those moments when he created a shared vision for how different groups of people, who look different as well, are working towards one goal. So the main lesson I learned was get rid of all these different labels. It just serves as distraction rather than productivity. And the final book is Made in America by Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. And this book was great because Sam Walton represents the American dream. You have a vision, you work hard, you stay consistent, and you keep trying to get better at least one thing every single day. This could lead to massive changes. And that's what it did for Walmart. He started to grow at rapid rates, and eventually he wanted the company to go public. When Walmart decided to go public, a lot of speculators thought that this company was going to lose touch with its roots, that Sam Walton was now going to be a fancy boy, no longer that blue-collar worker that allowed him to rise in the first place. Yet, that wasn't the case, mainly because Sam Walton was an amazing leader. Where Henry Ford predominantly focused on his work as number one, Sam Walton focused on the customer as number one. And what he would do with his employees was that he would give them a lot of information on the changes that Walmart was planning to do, which a lot of companies at the time didn't do. Typically, managers made a decision, didn't inform the employees at all, and suddenly would surprise the employees with a massive announcement. Sam Walton was different. He gave targeted information, he gave his employees equity, and he wanted to form a tribe that had one goal of serving the customer. And that's how Sam Walton was able to maintain his roots even when the company became public. So these are 3 books that I would highly recommend you check out, especially if you are now entering a time in your life when leadership is a must. I'm going to drop all of the books in the description box and in the pinned comment right on below. Be sure to check it out and level up your leadership skills. Thank you very much for joining the Armani Talks YouTube channel, and I'll catch you on the next episode.